reels sometimes. That might have been the end of it, but something in her reaction made Alex uneasy. Over the next few days, he started paying closer attention. He noticed that she was always quick to lock her phone when he entered the room. If a notification popped up, she would swipe it away before he could catch a glimpse. Then, one night, while Emma was in the shower, her phone buzzed on the nightstand. A message preview flashed on the screen before disappearing. Daniel, don't tell him. Alex's heart pounded. He wasn't the type to invade his wife's privacy, but this wasn't just some casual chat anymore. Why would Daniel tell her to keep something from him? When Emma returned, towel wrapped around her damp hair, she saw the expression on Alex's face. What's wrong? She asked. Why did Daniel tell you not to tell me something? She froze for a moment before forcing a laugh. Oh, that? It's nothing. He just meant our chats weren't important enough to bring up. Alex didn't buy it. Then why delete them? Emma's eyes darted away. I wasn't sure if you had seen them or not. If you hadn't, I didn't want you to get the wrong idea. And what idea would that be? Silence. Over the next few weeks, more red flags surfaced. Daniel had blocked Alex on Instagram, not just unfollowed him, but blocked him completely. It was as if he wanted to erase any trace of their connection. Emma, too, had wiped her chat history clean, deleting every conversation before Alex could read them fully. When confronted, her explanations kept shifting. I had already decided to stop talking to him. I was just overwhelmed and wanted to clear my mind. Since he ignores me at the gym, I figured there was no point in chatting online. The contradictions piled up. One moment she claimed she deleted the chats impulsively, the next she insisted she didn't even know how to delete messages and had to practice on another conversation first. Even more unsettling was the discovery that she had done the same with her previous trainer, Nathan. All of his messages, texts, calls, and WhatsApp chats were gone. When Alex asked if she had ever taken personal training from Nathan, she denied it outright. But later, he found old gym invoices that suggested otherwise. As much as Alex wanted to trust her, every new revelation chipped away at his confidence. Was he being paranoid, or was Emma hiding something far worse than he had imagined? The thought haunted him, and he knew he couldn't ignore it any longer. Part 3. Unraveling the mystery. Alex had always believed that trust was the foundation of a strong marriage. But trust, once cracked, had a way of splintering into pieces. No matter how much he tried to push the doubts away, they clung to him like shadows, growing darker with each unanswered question. Emma had always been a warm and loving wife, but now there was a distance between them, something unspoken but undeniable. Her gym visits stretched longer, and her phone was practically glued to her hand. She wasn't just deleting messages anymore. She was keeping her phone on silent, taking calls in another room, and even turning her screen away from him when scrolling through social media. It wasn't just Daniel that bothered Alex anymore. It was the pattern. First, her deleted conversations with Nathan. Now, her shifting explanations about Daniel. And through it all, the same gut-wrenching feeling that he was being lied to. One evening, determined to find the truth, Alex decided to test something. As Emma was getting ready for the gym, he casually asked, "Mind if I come with you today?" She froze for just a fraction of a second, long enough for Alex to notice. "Oh," she said, adjusting the strap of her gym bag. "It's leg day and I don't think you'd enjoy it. Plus, you hate crowded gyms. I can do my own thing. No harm in going together, right?" Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Emma hesitated, then forced a smile. "Sure, if you really want to." At the gym, Alex kept his distance, pretending to focus on his own workout. But his eyes kept drifting toward Emma and Daniel. They barely acknowledged each other. No smiles, no waves, nothing. It was as if they were complete strangers. Yet something felt off. If Daniel and Emma weren't close, why had they been talking so much online? Why a secrecy? The cold distance between them at the gym felt unnatural, like two people overcompensating to avoid suspicion. Alex decided to dig deeper. That night, when Emma was asleep, he searched her Instagram activity. He couldn't see Daniel's profile, he was still blocked, but he checked Emma's likes and comments on public posts. Sure enough, there they were. Her likes on Daniel's gym selfies, playful emojis on his stories, and a series of shared fitness reels between them. She had made it seem like their interaction was casual, but the engagement was constant. And worse, she had never mentioned any of this to Alex. The next morning, as she stepped out of the shower, Alex confronted her. "Emma, why did Daniel block me?" She pulled her towel tighter around her body. "I have no idea." "Really?" Alex folded his arms. "Because I also saw that you've been liking all of his posts. Commenting. Sending each other reels." Her face paled for just a moment before she quickly recovered. "So what? Liking someone's post isn't a crime." "No, but lying about it is," Alex shot back. "And deleting messages. And letting another man tell you not to tell your husband about your conversations." Emma sighed, rubbing her temples. I knew you'd overreact. That's why I didn't tell you. Then tell me now. Why did you delete everything? She hesitated. Because I didn't want you to see it and jump to conclusions. Alex narrowed his eyes. Then why not delete them sooner? Why wait until I started asking questions? Emma opened her mouth but didn't speak. For the first time, she looked genuinely caught off guard. She started, then stopped. Alex's heart pounded. He had expected another excuse, another lie. But for the first time, Emma had nothing to say. That silence said more than words ever could. And it terrified him. Part 4. The confrontation and resolution. For a moment, the bedroom was completely silent. The only sound was the muffled hum of the air conditioner. Emma stood frozen, gripping the edge of the towel wrapped around her, her eyes darting around as if searching for an escape. Alex felt his pulse in his ears. He hadn't planned for this conversation to happen like this, but now that it had, he couldn't walk away. He needed the truth, no more half answers, no more deflections. Emma, he said, his voice calmer now, but firm. I need to know the truth. Were you cheating on me? Her breath hitched slightly, but then she scoffed. Seriously, Alex? You're making it sound like I've had some full-blown affair. Then explain, Alex said. Because I've given you every chance to be honest, and all I've gotten are contradictions. Emma sighed and sat down on the edge of the bed, looking away. I wasn't cheating, she muttered. Alex's fingers curled into fists. Then why delete everything? Why lie about Nathan? Why did Daniel tell you to keep things from me? Emma exhaled sharply. Because I knew you'd react like this. Look at you, you're acting like some detective, interrogating me. Alex felt frustration rising in his chest. I wouldn't have to act like this if you had been honest from the start. Emma rubbed her temples. Fine. You want the truth? I deleted the chats because I knew how they looked. I was chatting with Daniel a lot, and yeah, maybe it was more than I should have, but I wasn't cheating, Alex. I liked the attention, okay? Alex's stomach twisted. What do you mean, liked the attention? Emma looked down at her hands. I've been feeling invisible. We've been married for 10 years, Alex. We have kids. We don't go on dates like we used to. We barely even talk about anything other than bills or schedules. And then suddenly, someone like Daniel starts giving me attention. He made me feel attractive again. Alex swallowed hard. So what? You let him flirt with you? Emma hesitated, then nodded slowly. Sometimes, yeah. But I never met him outside the gym, never even let it get physical. It was just words. Compliments. That's all. Alex sat down on the other side of the bed, running a hand down his face. Do you even hear yourself? You don't think that's a betrayal? Emma's shoulders slumped. I don't know. I didn't think of it that way. But when you started asking questions, I panicked. I knew how it would look, so I deleted everything instead of just telling you the truth. For a long time, neither of them spoke. Alex stared at the floor, his emotions in turmoil. He had feared the worst, an outright affair, but what she admitted felt like a different kind of heartbreak. She hadn't physically cheated, but she had sought validation from another man, hid it from him, and only admitted it now when she had no other choice. Why didn't you just talk to me? He finally asked, his voice quieter now. If you felt like we were drifting apart, why didn't you tell me? Emma wiped her eyes. I don't know. I was afraid. I didn't even realize how far it had gone until you started asking questions. Alex let out a slow breath. And Nathan? What about him? Emma looked guilty again. It was kind of the same thing. He was my trainer before Daniel, and I guess I liked the attention from him too. But nothing ever happened. I promise. Alex shook his head. Do you even understand how hard that is to believe? Emma reached for his hand, but he pulled away. The hurt was too raw. Alex, I'm sorry, she whispered. I never meant to hurt you. He stood up, running a hand through his hair. I don't know what to do with this, Emma. I need time. She nodded, looking down. I understand. That night, Alex slept in the guest room. He needed space to think, to process. He didn't know if their marriage was broken beyond repair. But one thing was clear, trust, once shattered, wasn't easy to rebuild. And whether they could fix it at all, only time would tell. My girlfriend 26F went on a trip, lied about a guy she met, and now I 27M don't know if I can trust her. My girlfriend, Sophie 26F, and I, Ethan 27M, have been living together for almost 2 years. Lately, things haven't been great. We've been arguing over small things, getting on each other's nerves, and feeling distant. Out of frustration, Sophie decided to take a solo trip to a coastal town in California to clear her head. During the trip, she called me out of the blue, saying she wanted to work things out, which gave me hope. But after she returned, I stumbled upon something that shattered my trust. She had been talking late at night with a guy she met on the trip. When I asked about it, she dismissed my concerns, but the more I pushed, the more disturbing details started coming out. Now, I don't know if I'm overreacting or if she's hiding something even worse. Sophie and I had been struggling for weeks, little arguments turning into bigger fights, moments of silence stretching longer than usual. It wasn't like us. We'd been living together for almost 2 years, and while we had our ups and downs, this was the first time it felt like we were truly disconnected. I could tell she was frustrated, and honestly, so was I. One evening, she told me she needed space. I just need some time to clear my head, she said. Maybe a short trip will help. I didn't argue. Maybe some time apart would do us both good. A couple of days later, she packed up and went to Santa Monica, California, a lively beach town with plenty of sun, surf, and distractions. We didn't talk much while she was there, just a couple of short texts here and there. I was dealing with my own stress. My mom had been having serious health issues, and between worrying about her and trying to focus on work, I didn't have the energy to think about Sophie's trip. Then, out of nowhere, she called. I miss you, she said, her voice softer than it had been in weeks. I think I want to come back and work things out. Hearing that felt like a weight had been lifted off my chest. I told her I wanted the same thing, that I was glad she called. Maybe this trip had given her the clarity she needed. When she got back, things seemed normal at first. She told me about her trip, how she spent time at the beach, went to some bars, and met a few people. Apparently, she'd spent most of her time with a foreign couple and a guy named Lucas 28M, who was traveling solo. He was cool, she said casually. Super chill. We just hung out as a group. It sounded innocent enough. I didn't think much of it. Then, a few days after she got back, I was using her phone to approve something at our apartment gate, and a notification popped up, a missed call from Lucas. My stomach twisted a little. She hadn't mentioned keeping in touch with him. I casually asked, "Hey, you're still talking to that guy from your trip?" She shrugged. "Yeah, just here and there. He was cool to talk to." Something about her tone made me pause. I opened her call log. There it was, a 1.5-hour late-night call with him the night before. I tried to keep my voice steady. "You were on the phone with him for that long?" Sophie immediately got defensive. "It's not a big deal. He's just a friend. Why are you acting weird about this?" I didn't want to jump to conclusions, so I took a deep breath and asked a simple question. "Was he hitting on you?" She shook her head firmly. "No, he wasn't." I wanted to believe her, but something didn't sit right. Later that night, I brought it up again, this time asking if I could check their texts, not because I didn't trust her, but because I needed to put my mind at ease. To my surprise, she handed me the phone without hesitation. At first, there was nothing alarming, just casual conversation. But as I scrolled, I found messages that made my heart drop. "Lucas, don't cry. Lucas, I'm glad that it happened. Lucas, we both needed it. Lucas, would have been nice if we had cuddled, but it's okay." My chest tightened. I turned to Sophie. "What does this mean?" She hesitated. Then, in a low voice, she said, "He had feelings for me, but I didn't do anything with him. I just wanted to feel better. That's all." I stared at her, trying to process what she was saying. "You were flirting with him?" "It wasn't like that," she insisted. "I just needed to talk to someone. It made me feel better. That's all it was." I wanted to believe her. I really did. But her late-night calls and texts about what happened weren't adding up. Something about this felt wrong. And deep down, I knew this wasn't the full story. I tried to brush it off. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe Sophie really was just venting to a stranger. But no matter how much I told myself to let it go, the messages kept replaying in my head. "I'm glad that it happened. We both needed it. Would have been nice if we had cuddled, but it's okay." It didn't make sense. What exactly had happened? And why was she being so vague? The next day at work, I couldn't focus. I kept running through worst-case scenarios. Every time I tried to convince myself that Sophie wouldn't lie to me, another thought popped up. Why did she say no to his cuddling comment instead of just shutting him down completely? Why was she still defending this guy when she knew how I felt? I snapped. I stepped out of the office and called her. My voice was calm but firm. "I need you to tell me everything. The whole story." She sighed on the other end of the line. "I already told you, nothing happened." I stayed silent. After a pause, she said, "Okay. I didn't tell you everything." My stomach dropped. "I did stay over at his place," she admitted. "But nothing happened. We just talked." The second she said it, I felt like the ground had been pulled from under me. "You stayed over?" I repeated, barely able to get the words out. "I was drunk," she said quickly. "The couple we were with left early, and I didn't feel safe going back to my Airbnb alone. Lucas offered his couch and I took it. That's it." I wanted to believe her. I really did. But she had already kept this from me. If she had nothing to hide, why did she wait until now to tell me? "Why didn't you say this before?" I asked. "Because I knew how you'd react," she said. I didn't want to deal with this fight. I ran a hand through my hair, trying to stay calm. You didn't want to deal with the fight, so you just lied? It wasn't a lie, she argued. I just left out details that didn't matter. I didn't cheat. I didn't do anything wrong. I wanted to scream. How was staying the night with another guy just a detail that didn't matter? I took a deep breath. So tell me, Sophie, what else are you leaving out? Silence. Sophie. Another pause. Then she mumbled, he tried to hold my hand. Tried? I clenched my jaw. Did you let him? No. I pulled away. I wanted to believe her, but I was past the point of trusting half-truths. Sophie, did anything else happen? No. I exhaled sharply, trying to keep myself from losing it. You're telling me you were drunk, alone in his apartment, talking for hours, and he only tried to hold your hand? That's it? Yes. I didn't believe her. Not because I wanted to think the worst, but because she had already lied by omission twice. First about staying in contact with him, then about staying over. And now she was acting like the only thing that happened was some innocent hand-holding? I wasn't stupid. But the worst part, I wanted to believe her. I loved this woman. I didn't want to throw everything away over something I couldn't even prove. But at the same time, I couldn't ignore the sick feeling in my gut. I ended the call by telling her we'd talk when I got home. But deep down, I knew I wasn't going to get the whole truth until I forced it out of her. That night, I walked into our apartment feeling like a stranger in my own home. Sophie was sitting on the couch, curled up under a blanket, looking small. Guilty. I sat down across from her. No small talk. No distractions. Just the weight of everything hanging in the air. Sophie, I need you to tell me the whole truth. Every detail. No more half-truths. No more things you think I don't need to know. I want the full story, start to finish. She hesitated. I already told you everything. I shook my head. No, you told me what you thought I could handle. And every time I pushed, I found out something new. So now I need you to be completely honest. Her hands gripped the blanket tighter. I don't know what you want me to say. Tell me the truth, I said, my voice quieter this time. Did anything happen between you and Lucas that night? She swallowed hard. My heart was pounding. I wasn't even sure I wanted the answer anymore. But I had come too far to stop now. She hesitated. I told you, he tried to hold my hand. But I stopped him. I swear, nothing else happened. I searched her face, looking for any sign of a lie. Her words sounded like the truth, but the way she had drip-fed me information over the past 24 hours made me feel like I was still missing pieces. Then why does it feel like you're still holding back? I asked. She exhaled shakily. Because I know you don't trust me. I leaned forward, rubbing my temples. Sophie, how am I supposed to trust you when I've had to pry the truth out of you? You didn't tell me about the calls. You didn't tell me about the sleepover. You didn't tell me about the hand-holding. You only admitted things after I confronted you. So how can I believe that there's nothing else? She was quiet for a long time. Then, barely above a whisper, she said, I didn't want to hurt you. I let out a bitter laugh. You already did. Silence filled the room. Finally, she met my eyes. What do you want me to do? I sighed. I don't know. I don't even know what I want to believe anymore. And that was the truth. I wanted to believe that Sophie had done nothing wrong. That she was just a woman who got caught up in an emotionally vulnerable moment and made a stupid mistake by staying over. That she didn't cross any real lines. But then why was she so hesitant to tell me the full truth? Why did it feel like there was still something she wasn't saying? And worst of all, how could I ever trust her again? I looked at her, the woman I had loved for so long, and realized something that broke me more than anything else. Even if she hadn't physically cheated on me, she had still betrayed my trust. And maybe that was just as bad. I stood up. I need space, I said simply. Her face fell. You leaving? For now. She didn't try to stop me. I grabbed my keys, walked out the door, and felt the cold night air hit me like a wave. I didn't know what I was going to do. But I knew one thing for sure, I could never look at Sophie the same way again. Story 2. I 18 messed up my best friend's 7-year relationship, and I regret it. When I was 14, I transferred to a new school in Chicago and moved into a nearby boarding house. It was my first time living away from my parents, and I felt lost. I was loud, clumsy, and didn't fit in. Some classmates introduced me to a group of older guys, including Jake, who was about 3 years older than me. Since I was the youngest, they never let me in on their wild activities, but they found a use for me. I became their messenger. My innocent face made me the perfect person to pass notes and gifts between couples. That's how I met Emily, Jake's crush. I admired her a lot, like some kind of untouchable angel. Looking back, I was definitely delusional. By the time I turned 16, Jake and I had become close. I wasn't the kind of guy who stood out in class. I was just another invisible student who barely made an impression. But Jake? He had a presence. He was confident, outgoing, and had a way of making people gravitate toward him. Since he was the only person I really knew, I naturally stuck by his side. Jake had been dating Emily for a while by then. Everyone in school admired them as a couple. Jake, the cool and confident guy, and Emily, the sweet, smart girl everyone liked. I didn't really think much of their relationship at first. To me, Emily was just Jake's girlfriend, someone I occasionally ran errands for back in the boarding house when I was younger. But as I spent more time with Jake, I started learning more about their relationship. Jake often opened up to me about his struggles. He had a complicated home life, academic pressure weighing him down, and a general feeling that he had to prove himself to everyone. He would talk about how Emily was one of the few people who truly understood him, how she was always there for him even when things got tough. I listened, nodding along, not really knowing how to respond. I had never been in a relationship myself, so all of this was new to me. After our board exams, Jake and I both got into the same college prep program. It made sense for us to move in together. We were already close, and it was easier to split the cost of living. At first, it was great. We had our routines, studied together, and supported each other. But one thing stood out: Jake's relationship with Emily wasn't as perfect as it seemed from the outside. They had their fair share of arguments, mostly over small things that piled up over time. Sometimes, when they fought, Jake would hand me his phone and ask me to text Emily for him. "Just tell her I'm busy," he'd say. Or, "Can you explain to her that I didn't mean it that way?" It became a common thing. At first, I didn't think much of it. I was just relaying messages, trying to help my friend out. But over time, I started adding little things to the conversations: harmless jokes, teasing her about how dramatic Jake could be, or making fun of their silly arguments. Emily responded well to it. She would laugh, call me annoying, and sometimes even tease me back. It was nothing serious, just casual banter. I never saw it as anything more than that. At this point, I had no romantic interest in Emily. She was just Jake's girlfriend, and I respected that. I thought of myself as nothing more than a middleman, someone who helped smooth things over when they fought. I never imagined that anything I was doing could lead to something bigger. Looking back, maybe I was naive. Maybe I should have realized that constantly being involved in their relationship, even in small ways, would blur the lines. But at the time, it all felt harmless. I was just helping a friend. I had no idea how much things would change in the months that followed. Not long after, I left the college prep program due to personal reasons. I didn't have Jake around anymore, and without the constant busyness of school and shared routines, I started feeling a strange emptiness. Loneliness crept in before I even realized it. At first, I kept in touch with Jake and Emily like any normal friend would. Jake was busy with his own life, so most of our conversations were brief. Emily, on the other hand, was different. Our chats had always been lighthearted, but now they became more frequent. I don't remember exactly when, but somewhere along the way, our dynamic shifted. It started small. I would tease her about how much she and Jake fought, and she'd laugh it off. Then, I started playfully complimenting her, saying things like, "If Jake wasn't around, you'd have an army of guys lining up for you." She would act annoyed, tell me to stop, but she never actually told me to stop. So I kept going. I'd say something cheesy, she'd call me dumb, I'd apologize, and then we'd repeat the whole thing again the next day. I thought it was just harmless fun, but Emily started playing along too. She would tease me back, act flustered when I joked about her looks, and even started being the one to initiate conversations. It was addictive in a way. Maybe it was my loneliness, or maybe I just liked the attention. Either way, I let it continue. Then one night, everything changed. Emily called me for the first time. It was unexpected, but I picked up without thinking. We talked about random things: school, friends, life. But toward the end of the call, she got quiet for a moment and then said, "I think I like you." I froze. This wasn't part of the game. We weren't supposed to take things seriously. I didn't even know how I felt. Did I like her? Or did I just like the idea of her? All I knew was that this was wrong. I told her we couldn't do this, that she was with Jake, and that it wasn't right. She didn't argue. She just said, "I know." For a moment, I thought that would be the end of it. I assumed she would realize it was just a phase and things would go back to normal. But then she asked, "Can we still be friends?" I hesitated but agreed. I figured as long as I kept my boundaries, everything would be fine. But it wasn't fine. Jake started growing suspicious. He wasn't stupid, he could tell something was off. One day, he confronted me and asked, "You're not doing anything behind my back, right?" I could barely look him in the eye when I told him no. I felt guilty, but at the same time, I told myself I wasn't really doing anything wrong. We hadn't done anything. We were just talking. Emily, on the other hand, was getting restless. She started hinting at breaking up with Jake. She would say things like, "I don't think we're as good together as people think," Or what if we're just staying together because it's expected? I should have told her to stop. I should have told her to focus on Jake. But instead, I said the worst thing I possibly could have: just don't break up with him because of me. It wasn't a rejection. It wasn't encouragement either. It was a way to keep things going without facing the consequences. And that was my biggest mistake. Eventually, Emily and I met up. It wasn't supposed to be anything serious, just a casual hangout. We met in the city, walked around, and ended up at a friend's place for a while. Nothing happened between us, not really. The only physical contact was when she grabbed my wrist to pull me across the street. But something about it felt off. Like we were crossing a line neither of us wanted to admit was there. Before we parted ways, she said, "Don't tell Jake about this." I nodded. I didn't see any reason to, anyway. Nothing had happened. Or at least, that's what I told myself. That night, at 3 a.m., my phone rang. It was Jake. "Where are you?" His voice was sharp, demanding. Panic shot through me. I had no idea what he knew, but my instincts told me to lie. "I'm not in town," I said quickly and hung up. My hands were shaking. The next morning, I called Emily. "Did you say something to Jake?" "Yes." Her voice was calm, almost casual. It felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. After all that secrecy, all those quiet agreements to keep things hidden she had just told him? I texted Jake immediately, apologizing, but I didn't know what I was even apologizing for. He responded only once. "Don't talk to her again." I agreed. It was the right thing to do. It should have ended there. But 3 months later, in the middle of the night, I sent her a message. "Me, hey." She replied instantly. "Emily, where have you been? I missed you." We talked all night. It was like nothing had changed. I told myself I was just lonely, that it didn't mean anything. But the next morning, there was another message waiting for me, this time from Jake. I was done. Done with the back and forth, the guilt, the secrecy. I was tired of feeling like the villain in someone else's story. So I invited both Jake and Emily over to my place. They showed up together. They laughed. They acted like nothing had ever happened. Watching them, I felt nothing. Whatever interest I'd had in Emily had vanished. They just seemed like two people caught in a cycle, one that I no longer wanted any part in. A few weeks later, Emily asked to meet again. But this time, something in me snapped. My mind flooded with memories of the past 8 months, the guilt, the secrecy, the anxiety of waiting for another one of Jake's messages. I realized I didn't want any part of this anymore. I called her and said, "I can't do this." Then I blocked her. And just like that, it was over. I don't know what happened between Jake and Emily after that. I never reached out to find out. Maybe they stayed together. Maybe they broke up. I just know that I was wrong. I made selfish choices. I crossed lines I shouldn't have. And for that, I'm sorry. I hope they're happy together or apart. I really do. I let my ex think I passed away, now he has to live with it. Sometimes, the worst pain isn't in the shouting matches or the dramatic goodbyes, it's in the silence. It's in being erased, like you never mattered in the first place. That's exactly what happened to me. 6 months ago, my ex disappeared without a word. No breakup conversation, no explanation, just a cold, sudden block on everything. I had to find out the truth myself. He had left me for his ex. The same ex he had sworn was abusive. The same ex he had promised was out of his life. He lied about everything, and when I finally pieced it together, it broke me. I nearly ended my own life that day. For months, I lived in that heartbreak. But instead of reaching out, instead of begging for closure, I stayed silent. I forced myself to move on, to heal. But in the back of my mind, I always knew if he ever tried to come back, I would make him feel the loss he had made me suffer. And then one day, he did. 6 months. That's how long it had been since he disappeared. 6 months of silence. 6 months of trying to piece myself back together after the man I loved shattered me without a second thought. I had gone through every stage of grief, denial, anger, heartbreak, numbness. And just when I had finally started accepting that I would never get an apology, never get closure, he showed up. It started with a notification. His name appeared on my screen like a ghost from my past, and for a moment, I thought I was hallucinating. My hands trembled as I opened the message. It was longer than anything he had ever written to me when we were together. He poured out his guilt, his regrets, his apologies. He admitted to mistreating me, to disappearing without an explanation, to blocking me out of nowhere. He admitted that he had left me for his ex, the same woman he had sworn he had no feelings for, the one he had painted as abusive. And now, 6 months later, he wanted to say he was sorry. He missed me. He wished he had done things differently. He wished he could take it all back. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, but not in the way it used to when I saw his name. It wasn't love. It wasn't longing. It was something darker, something colder. I had spent months drowning in heartbreak, barely surviving the weight of what he did to me. I had fought through the worst pain I had ever experienced, while he had carried on with his life like I never existed. And now that his little fantasy had fallen apart, now that he realized he had made a mistake, he thought he could just waltz back in and expect me to welcome him with open arms? No, that wasn't happening. I could have ignored him. I could have blocked him back. But that wasn't enough. I wanted him to feel the weight of what he had done. I wanted him to understand what it was like to lose someone and never get them back. So I did something that I had thought about for months. I made him believe I was dead. I took a deep breath, steadied my hands, and replied, "Hi, this is Emily's sister. We've been trying to reach you. I'm so sorry, but Emily passed away a few months ago." I stared at the message for a moment before hitting send. My heart was pounding in my ears. Would he believe it? Would he even care? I didn't have to wait long. His reply came almost instantly. "What? No. No, that can't be true." I could practically feel his panic through the screen. "It is," I wrote back. "She left a note with your name in it. We weren't sure if we should reach out, but we figured you would want to know." Silence. Then another message. "Oh my God. I had no idea. I didn't know she was struggling. I feel sick. I should have been there. I'm so sorry." I could imagine him sitting there, heart racing, trying to process the weight of what I had just told him. And for the first time in 6 months, I felt like I was the one in control. "She left some things for you," I added. "If you want them, I can mail them to you." He gave me his address without hesitation. And just like that, the trap was set. The moment he sent me his address, I knew I had him. He had swallowed every word without hesitation, without questioning if it was real. Maybe it was guilt, maybe it was shock, but either way, he believed it. And now, for the first time since he had discarded me like I was nothing, he was the one suffering. I took my time gathering the things I was supposed to send him. Of course, there was nothing I actually wanted to give him, just carefully chosen items to make the lie more convincing. An old hoodie of his that I had never thrown away. A book I had once borrowed from him. A bracelet he had gifted me for my birthday. Meaningful things, things that would make him feel like I had truly left them behind for him in my final moments. And the note. The note was the most important part. I sat down and wrote it carefully, making sure every word dripped with the weight of lost time and unspoken pain. "I don't know if you'll ever see this, but if you do, I just want you to know that I never stopped wondering why. Why I wasn't enough, why you left the way you did, why you never even said goodbye. I don't know if you ever loved me the way I loved you, but I did love you. Even when it hurt. Even when it killed me. I hope you find what you're looking for, even if it was never me." I read it over and over again, making sure it was just vague enough to haunt him, but not dramatic enough to raise suspicion. When I was satisfied, I folded it neatly and placed it in the box. The next morning, I went to the post office and sent it off. I pictured him opening it, his hands shaking as he unfolded the letter, his heart pounding as he read words from a woman he believed was gone forever. I wondered if he cried, if he regretted everything, if he wished he could go back in time and undo it all. But it didn't matter. Nothing he felt now would ever compare to what he had put me through. For 6 months, I had been drowning in pain, screaming into the void with no response. Now, for the first time, I knew he was feeling even a fraction of that. And the best part? He would never know the truth. To him, I was just a ghost. A mistake he could never fix. A reminder of the damage he had caused. And that was all I ever wanted. I didn't think much about the package after I sent it. My work was done. It was out of my hands now, and all that was left was to let the lie settle in his mind, wrapping around him like the grief he deserved to feel. A few days passed, and then, like clockwork, I got another message from him. This time, it was different. Longer. Desperate. I don't know what to say. I don't even know if this is real. I feel like I can't breathe. I keep rereading the note, hoping I'll wake up and it won't be true. I keep thinking about the last time I spoke to you. How I just threw you away like you meant nothing. You were always too good for me, and now I can't even tell you I'm sorry. I stared at the message for a long time. I imagined him alone, holding that letter in his shaking hands, rereading my words over and over, hoping there was some way to undo the past. But there wasn't. Not for him. Not anymore. He went on. "I wish I could take it all back. I don't know how to live with this. I feel sick knowing I hurt you like this. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I wish I had the chance to ask for it. Please tell me this isn't real. Please. I just need to know." I could almost hear the panic in his words, the weight of guilt pressing down on him like it had on me for all those months. The pain I had carried alone was now his burden. And the best part? There was nothing he could do to fix it. I didn't reply. I left him sitting in that silence, drowning in the regret he had tried so hard to outrun. I don't know what he did after that. If he told his friends. If he lay awake at night staring at his phone, hoping for an answer that would never come. Maybe he tried to visit my grave, searching for a place to mourn the woman he had abandoned. Maybe he sat alone, haunted by the thought that I had died, believing he never cared. Whatever it wasn't my problem anymore. For months, I had been the one trapped in grief. The one begging the universe for answers, for closure, for something to make the pain make sense. Now, finally, the roles were reversed. I wasn't just his past anymore, I was his ghost. A shadow he could never escape. A reminder of everything he lost the day he decided I was disposable. And I was never coming back. Ada for taking back the guy my ex-best friend stole? There are some betrayals that cut deeper than others. Some sting for a moment and fade, while others settle into your bones, shaping the way you see the world. For me, it wasn't just about love or jealousy, it was about trust, about history, about knowing someone for years only to watch them turn around and stab you in the back. My best friend and I had been inseparable since childhood, bound together by years of shared experiences, inside jokes, and a connection that always seemed to toe the line between friendship and something more. We both knew it. Everyone around us knew it. But somehow, we could never get the timing right. We danced around our feelings, always one step away from something real. Then she came along, someone I had trusted, someone who had no business inserting herself into what was meant to be our story. At first, I wanted to be the bigger person. I told myself that fate had simply dealt a cruel hand, that maybe I had lost my chance. But when I saw the way she manipulated him, the way she tried to erase me from his life as if I had never mattered, something inside me snapped. I had given her the benefit of the doubt once, but I wouldn't do it again. She thought she could take him away from me. She thought she could rewrite history. But tomorrow, everything will change. I should have known something was wrong the moment I saw her name pop up on his phone. It wasn't the message itself that set off alarm bells, it was the way he tilted the screen away from me, like he didn't want me to see. That was the first crack, the first moment that made me wonder if something was going on behind my back. But I pushed the thought away. I wasn't the jealous type, and he was my best friend. I trusted him. And more than that, I trusted her. She and I had known each other practically since birth. We weren't as close as we used to be, but there was still that unspoken bond of history. She knew everything about my feelings for him. I had confided in her about it for years. When we were kids, I had even told her that one day, I wanted to marry him. And yet, here she was, sneaking behind my back, slipping into a space that was supposed to be mine. Still, I gave her the benefit of the doubt. I asked her casually about her dating life, hoping she'd be honest with me. She told me she wasn't seeing anyone, lied to my face without hesitation. And I believed her. I was naive enough to think that loyalty meant something to her. The truth didn't hit me until one of our mutual friends saw his phone and told me what they had seen: flirty messages, secret conversations, proof that something had been going on between them since the night of my birthday. The night I had introduced them. When I confronted him, he didn't even try to deny it. Instead, he told me everything. How she had found him on Instagram and started messaging him. How, at first, he had kept his distance. But she had been persistent, wearing him down, flirting until eventually he let himself believe that maybe this was what moving on looked like. That maybe I didn't want him the way he wanted me, so why should he keep waiting? I wanted to scream at him. At her. At myself for being so blind. But instead, I walked away. I distanced myself for weeks, telling myself that maybe we had never been meant to be. That if it was this easy for him to let her in, then maybe I had been fooling myself about what we were. I spiraled for a while, fell back into my old habits of self-destruction, let the weight of betrayal settle into my chest. But eventually, I forced myself to stand back up. I focused on school, on myself. I cut my hair, bought new clothes, and forced myself to stop crying over people who clearly didn't value me the way I valued them. And then, after weeks of silence, I let him back in. Not because I had forgiven him, but because I wasn't going to let her win. I didn't reach out to him first. He was the one who came back, like I always knew he would. Our lives were too intertwined for him to just erase me. We went to the same college, studied the same major, and spent too many years leaning on each other for him to simply let go. And so, after a few weeks of silence, he messaged me like nothing had changed. At first, I was distant. I wasn't going to make it easy for him. But slowly, inevitably, we slipped back into our old rhythm. Study sessions that stretched into late-night FaceTime calls. Inside jokes that only made sense to us. Long hours spent together on campus, walking side by side like we always had. She wasn't around. She still had school, still lived an hour and a half away. And no matter how hard she tried, no matter how many calls or texts she sent, she couldn't compete with the sheer amount of time we spent together. She could demand his attention all she wanted, but at the end of the day, I was the one who was physically there. Maybe that's what set her off. Because out of nowhere, he called me one night, his voice shaky. I could hear it before he even said a word. Something was wrong. And when he finally spoke, the words made my stomach twist. "We can't be friends anymore." I asked why. I needed to hear him say it. "She had a meltdown," he admitted, his voice tired, defeated. "She told me she doesn't trust you. That she knows you still love me, and she thinks you'll try to steal me away." The irony of it almost made me laugh. She was afraid I would do to her what she had done to me. I didn't bother denying it. Yes, I still loved him. Of course I did. He was my first love, my best friend. But I had respected their relationship more than she ever respected mine. I had never tried to sabotage them, had never forced him to choose. She was the one who had done that. And now she was reaping what she had sown. I told him exactly that. That he was the one who had let her into his life, the one who had chosen her. And yet, here she was, demanding that he erase me entirely. He didn't say much in response. Just sighed heavily, mumbled something about needing to figure things out, and hung up. Not long after, she called me. The insult started immediately, accusations, anger, pure desperation spilling from her mouth. She told me I was ruining their relationship, begged me to walk away. I didn't argue. I just let her talk, and when I was done listening, I hung up. Because at that moment, I made my decision. I wasn't going anywhere. And tomorrow, neither would he. I woke up the next morning with a sense of certainty I hadn't felt in a long time. I wasn't backing down. She had taken something from me, something that had always been mine. And now she was panicking, because deep down, she knew the truth. He still belonged with me. I texted him, told him to meet me. No classes today, no distractions. Just us. He hesitated at first, but not for long. He wanted to see me. I knew he would. When we met, it was like no time had passed. The moment he saw me, his shoulders dropped like he had been carrying something heavy for too long. He smiled, small and tired, and we fell into step like we always had. We talked. About how things had changed, about how they hadn't. He told me how exhausting it was, constantly reassuring her. How she questioned everything, overanalyzed every moment he spent with me, as if she didn't already know she was fighting a losing battle. "She doesn't trust me," he admitted. I looked at him then, really looked at him. "Do you even trust yourself?" He didn't answer. Instead, he changed the subject, suggested we grab some food. We ordered drinks. One turned into two, into three. The easy laughter returned, the warmth, the familiarity that had always existed between us. And slowly, as the drinks loosened our words, the walls between us crumbled. At some point, he leaned in. Just slightly, just enough for me to notice. My heart pounded. I could feel the moment hanging between us, waiting. I didn't make the first move. I didn't have to. When he kissed me, it wasn't a mistake. It wasn't impulsive. It was inevitable. He pulled away, his face unreadable, but his eyes told me everything. Regret wasn't there. Only realization. He finally saw what I had known all along. We left the restaurant, walked through the city, the air between us charged. We didn't say it outright, not yet. But we both knew what had just happened. What it meant. His phone buzzed. I didn't need to see the name to know who it was. "You're going to tell her, aren't you?" I asked. A pause. Then a sigh. "I have to." But there was no dread in his voice. No guilt. Just resignation. Because this wasn't her victory anymore. It never had been. She had stolen him away once, but she couldn't keep him. By the time the night ended, I already knew I had won. Ada to tell my sister that her husband has a disturbing interest in my wife? There are certain lines that should never be crossed, especially within a family. But what happens when someone breaks those boundaries in the worst possible way? What if the person betraying your trust isn't a stranger, but your own brother-in-law? That's the nightmare I found myself in. My wife recently told me that my sister's husband has been making unwanted advances toward her behind my back. He has taken every opportunity to touch her inappropriately, make disgusting comments, and even send her messages that no married man should ever be sending to another woman, let alone his wife's sister-in-law. I was furious when I found out. My wife was shaken and disgusted, and I trust her completely. But now I'm left with an impossible choice. Do I tell my sister and risk breaking her family apart, or do I stay silent and hope he backs off now that we've confronted him? My sister and I have always been close, and she knows nothing about what her husband has done. She and I live less than a mile apart, and she often arranges family get-togethers, making it almost impossible to avoid him completely. My wife and I want him out of our lives, but we know that revealing the truth could destroy everything. Would I be wrong to tell my sister what kind of man she's married to? Or would I be just as guilty if I said nothing? When my wife first told me what had been happening, I felt a mix of rage, disgust, and helplessness. It wasn't just a one-time incident. This had been going on for months behind my back. While I was away on business trips, My brother-in-law had been making moves on my wife, waiting for moments when I wasn't around to push his luck. At first, my wife tried to brush it off as uncomfortable but harmless. Maybe he was just being overly friendly, maybe she was overthinking it. But as time went on, his behavior escalated. He started making suggestive comments about her body, standing too close, and touching her in ways that felt inappropriate. A hand on her lower back when he walked by, brushing against her arm when there was plenty of space, lingering stares that made her feel exposed and uneasy. Then came the messages. That's when she realized there was no mistaking his intentions. He started texting her things that crossed every possible boundary. It started subtle compliments that felt too personal, jokes that weren't appropriate. But it quickly turned explicit. He asked her if she ever thought about him, if she liked the way he touched her, even admitted to doing things to himself while looking at pictures of her. She was horrified. She shut him down immediately, telling him his behavior was unacceptable and that she wanted nothing to do with him. But the damage was already done. She felt unsafe, violated in a way that she couldn't fully explain. And worst of all, she felt guilty, like she had done something wrong, even though she hadn't encouraged him in any way. When she finally told me, I was livid. My first instinct was to confront him right then and there, to beat the living hell out of him for even thinking about my wife that way. But I had to think about the bigger picture: my sister, their daughter, the fallout that would come from exposing him. I sat with my wife and listened to every detail, trying to keep my anger in check. The more she told me, the worse it got. He had waited until he thought he wouldn't get caught, taking advantage of my absence to try and manipulate her. I couldn't let this go unanswered. We agreed that the first step was to cut him out of our lives. We told him to stay away from us, that we wanted nothing to do with him. He tried to play dumb at first, acting as if it was all a misunderstanding. But when I made it clear that I knew exactly what he had been doing, the coward backed down. He stammered out some half-hearted apology, but I wasn't interested in hearing it. But even after that confrontation, the problem wasn't truly solved. My sister still had no idea. She kept inviting us over, asking why we were suddenly avoiding family gatherings. I didn't want to lie to her, but I also didn't know how to tell her the truth without destroying her world. What would be worse, breaking my sister's heart with the truth, or staying silent and letting her live with a man she didn't really know? In the days that followed our confrontation with my brother-in-law, I felt like I was walking around with a bomb in my chest, ready to explode. My wife and I had made it clear that we wanted nothing to do with him, but avoiding him wasn't as easy as it sounded. My sister kept reaching out, trying to arrange family gatherings, completely unaware of the disgusting truth about her husband. Each time I ignored her invitations, she got more persistent. She asked if we were upset with her, if something had happened, if she had done something wrong. I could hear the hurt in her voice, and it tore me apart. She wasn't just my sister, she was my only sibling, someone I'd always protected. But now I was keeping something from her, something that could destroy her life. I wanted to tell her. I wanted to send her the messages, let her see exactly what kind of man she was married to. But every time I thought about it, I pictured my niece's face. She was just a kid, innocent and unaware of the storm brewing beneath her own roof. If I exposed her father, I wouldn't just be hurting my sister, I'd be tearing apart my niece's world, too. Then I found proof. My wife had kept the texts, knowing that if things escalated, we might need them. I read through them again, my stomach churning with every disgusting word. He had begged my wife not to tell me, admitted to things no decent man would ever say, even asked for things that made my blood boil. I had the ammunition to destroy him. The question was, should I use it? I wrestled with the decision for days, barely sleeping, my thoughts spinning in circles. My wife stood by me, supporting whatever choice I made. She told me that she didn't need revenge, she just wanted to feel safe. But how could I guarantee her safety when this man still had access to our lives through my sister? Finally, I made a choice, not the one I wanted to make, but the one I thought was best. I confronted him one last time. This time, I wasn't giving warnings, I was making a promise. I told him that if he ever spoke to my wife again, if he ever so much as looked at her the wrong way, I would make sure every single person he knew found out what kind of man he really was. I would show my sister the messages, I would tell our entire family, and I would make sure he lost everything. He turned pale, stammering out pathetic excuses, trying to backpedal. But I wasn't there to argue, I was there to end this. I told him to stay away from us permanently. And then, I did something I never thought I'd do. I decided not to tell my sister. Maybe it was cowardice. Maybe it was mercy. Maybe it was just my way of keeping my niece's life from imploding. But I knew that if I told my sister, her life would never be the same. And the truth is, I wasn't sure if she would even believe me. So I let it go for now. My wife and I cut all ties with him, and we've kept our distance from my sister's family as much as we can without raising suspicion. I don't know if I made the right choice. Maybe one day, my sister will find out the truth on her own. Maybe she already knows deep down. But for now, I've done what I can to protect my wife, and that's what matters most. If the day comes when my sister needs me, I'll be there. But until then, I just hope more than anything that I never regret staying silent.